the rocks get semi-liquefied, and they were talking about using sound to do that. So it's pretty interesting here that we're talking about, again, sound waves moving like seismic waves across the earth on a microscopic scale. If we were to figure out how to move material like that, we could build supermassive things without having to have supermassive equipment. You could just play sounds and move stuff. It'd be pretty interesting. But it's just goosebump stuff to see all these phenomena interacting across different length scales at once. So that's what the doctorate student described it as, goosebump stuff.
Vida é água que corre, que o rio não seca, de brotar, criar, renovar, Deus dará. Se esconde por trás da história, a glória de Deus, os ídolos meus. Primavera chegando e a noite caindo, você tá dormindo, é lindo de ver.
Hello, welcome to Inspired Earth. It has been way too long. I'm glad to be back, and thanks for hanging in there, everybody. I know I had gotten emails and messages and all sorts of stuff asking if I was okay and to come back, and thank you for everybody that messaged me. And I was just incredibly busy. I was trying to record stuff, and then I wouldn't have time for editing, and it's just been nuts. So I just took some time to do the things that I needed to do. I had been moving a little bit, and I have a new setup, so sorry if there's some echo. I'm still working on getting it completely set up. Could probably use some soundproofing on the walls, but I was doing volunteer work with a third-party political party and helping with their campaign, and I want to kind of just give like a State of the Union address a little bit. I mean, not actually, but kind of around that sort of type of thing of just addressing all the different topics that are going on at once or that I've missed. I'm probably going to miss some, and I'm going to have to put them in other episodes, but I'm going to talk about a lot in this one just to get everybody on the same page so that as we make more episodes, everybody's on the same page, like I said, and we are thinking of the same things, the same problems and solutions. So as normal, we're going to talk about a lot of problems. Some of it's kind of doom and gloomish, but we're gonna end it on a good note. And again, the reason that we talk about problems is not to just harp on negativity, but it's actually to learn about the issues so that we can make a solution towards them, because we can't just solve things with our imagination or not knowing things about them. We actually have to learn stuff about the problem in order to solve it. So that's the reason that we learn about difficult things, and that's just regarding science, right? That's not even like emotional or personally. You could even put that to personal life, that you have to learn about your own problems in order to fix them. You just can't ignore them all the time. So whether it's science or the globe or political or personal or economic, whatever, you got to deal with your stuff. So that's just kind of the way that it is. And I feel like with the economy and politically and climate-wise, environmentally, we are not doing what we need to do. So I'll start off with the election, kind of have a little bit of a list, but it's not going to be exhaustive. And I know everybody's done with the election. I mean, it's been done for a little bit, but I'm just going to go over what I was doing during that time period and why I wasn't putting videos out or podcasts out, even though I had recorded some. I just didn't have time to edit it. And I was doing a lot of volunteering work where we were getting out the information that there was more than just a two-party system in the United States. Why did the Democrats lose? They did not give anybody a reason to actually vote for them. They just said, "We are not Trump." That's basically all Kamala said, or Kamala, she said, was, "I'm not Trump, so vote for me." And she didn't really have any actual policies that she really put out. At the beginning, she put out a bunch of policies, and she started out with a big lead, and then she abandoned those policies that made her so popular at the beginning. And before I go on, I will also say that there was no primaries. We had no primary for the Democrats. So with a robust primary, I don't think that she would have even have been the nominee. But she was basically appointed the nominee. So we didn't have the primary, and we were stuck with Kamala if you didn't want to go with Trump, even if you didn't agree with her. And then she went out and started campaigning with Lindsay Cheney. Or that might not have been her name, but the Cheneys. The Cheney family. Who are the constructors of the Iraq War. If you're trying to say that you're not a conservative, then don't hang out with the Cheney family. Because she's trying to say that she's not the same as Biden or these other people, but she's around the Cheneys. Who, if you are endorsed by the Cheneys, it's like being endorsed by the Grim Reaper. It's a really bad thing. And she went and was advertising everywhere that basically she was a neoconservative. She was pro-war, pro-fracking, just basically was a conservative. There was really no difference. So anyways, not to get too far into like the technical details of the politics, but I just wanted to point out that she didn't, the Democrats did not really give anything to vote for other than the fact that they weren't allegedly a Republican. However, they're rubbing shoulders with all the Republicans. So, and then I'll also say that they took photographs of the campaign that I was working with. The signs that we had for our campaign blurred out our organization and then ran that on their ads, our campaign signs from our organization, a different party, completely different party running against them with the signs blurred out as their ads. So obviously the reason they did that was because our signs were effective, and that's the only reason they would use our signs in their ads. But they also spent millions of dollars to remove third parties from the ballot in all sorts of states around the United States, as well as trying to make sure there wasn't any primaries. So I would call that anti-democratic or undemocratic, ensuring that people are not allowed to be on the ballot, even if they get the amount of signatures. I mean, some of them got 2 or 3 times the amount of signatures, like hundreds of thousands of votes, if not tens of thousands of votes or signatures to be on the ballot, and they still sued to remove them from the ballot. So anyways, I'll just move on from that, but I just had to point out that that's the reason that, or part of the reason that they lost. So again, this is kind of like a State of the Union type of thing, so I'm going to be talking about the current events of where we are now. So that's how the Democrats lost. After that, Trump as president, he is now coming out and saying that he has these mass deportation plans, which that reminds me of some of the other things that were going on while I was away. So that sums up the election. I'm sure that we're all done with that, but then the election's over. So Trump won the presidency. He's the president-elect, and he has these mass deportation plans, which, before I go on about that reminds me of what else had been going on that I haven't been able to mention here locally in Central Texas, and that is real quick, back to the election. In the election, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who had been impeached and brought on charges federally and state charges for corruption and bribery and just all sorts of stuff, like hiding properties and just like whatever you can think of, he's doing it. And he got acquitted by the local government, but the federal government is still, was going after him. They're probably going to drop that now that Trump's becoming president, because people can just do whatever they want down here. But this Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, on September 6th, 2024, in San Antonio, Texas, Lydia Martinez, 87 years old, was awoken by a loud knock on the door at 6 a.m. when officers with guns drawn, bearing riot shields and brandishing a search warrant, barged in, broke down her door, forced out the family in their pajamas at gunpoint, in their nightgown. Again, 87-year-old woman who was a voter registration assistant, confiscated the cell phones, computers, calendar, license to conduct voter registration, as well as any electronics, TVs. Basically, they stole every electronic in her house, whether they were related to the voter registration effort or not. And this was before the election. This is in September, so right before the election happens. Officers carried out search warrants across 3 counties, raiding the homes of Texas House Representative candidate Celsia Castellano, chair of Tejano Democrats Manuel Medina, 2 other Latino nonprofit voter registration activists and abuelitas, grandmothers, Imelda Rodriguez and Marina Obregon, and mayor. I guess she was a mayor. When Martinez asked why they were searching her home, officers responded that Martinez, a national board member of League of United Latin American Citizens, had filed a complaint that senior citizens weren't receiving their absentee ballots. The search warrant sought information about vote harvesting and identity fraud. And apparently this was a complaint from multiple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Allegedly, they got a complaint. And that's why they went in 3 years later and stole all of this woman's electronics right before the election as she's registering Latinos. Sounds kind of suspicious. Outraged leaders and activists in the Mexican-American community called the raids nonsense and a terroristic hit job. This is a point-blank voter intimidation, and LULAC will fight for every right of Latino to exercise the right to vote. So, I will say that if you have people in uniform that are sworn to protect come up and break down your door and steal all of your electronics, hold you at gunpoint for hours. Doesn't say how many hours they held her in this article, but there was a different article that I had read that it was all day, hours and hours and hours and hours, that they held them out. And basically that's called a perp walk, where they humiliate you in front of the community. So they had them in front of all of their neighbors, standing in broken glass and their pajamas at gunpoint at an 87-year-old woman because she was a community organizer. And I would absolutely call that terrorism. And that's our officials. Our officials are basically at war with their people right now. Or it's starting. It has been actually for a while. And people say Project 2025, that they're going to come out and start going buck wild on people, and that we're not going to have any civil rights, and that they're going to be able to do whatever they want. Well, this shows right here, we don't need Project 2025 for that to happen. That's already happening down here in the South. They show up, if you're brown-skinned, they break your door down, and they ruin your life for trying to organize. So that was really impactful for me, and I'll just say it right now, I'm a Latino, and I don't find this acceptable at all. And we've talked about Native people and Native Americans and Indigenous people on this podcast a lot. And if you're going to talk about deporting Latinos from Texas, you're basically talking about kicking out Native Americans. Because Texas was part of Mexico a long, long time ago. Even before that, the people lived here were brown. So it's absolutely ridiculous to try to come in here and kick out all of the Latinos. And before I go on about that, I will say that there was an instance of this happening in the past called Operation Wetback, and yes, it was actually called that, where they had a mass deportation campaign. I think it was in the 50s, maybe it was the 60s. I'm thinking it was the 50s, but they deported Mexican American citizens. Like, they had a citizenship here in the United States. They kicked them out just for being Latino. And the people in charge are saying that they're going to do it even bigger than last time. And I'll play the video here in a second if you don't believe me.
I mean, some people find it harsh using the term, infestation and cockroaches and things like that. All you have to do is interview or spend some time with some victims, some migrant victims that are here in this country. And you'll understand that the governor has not overstated the issue. In fact, he has well stated the issue. And Texas is not going to allow any part of this state to be infested with that type of disease.
But if these people, these so-called representatives, are going to deport 20 million Latinos out of America, I will say that I work at one of the biggest companies in the world, and we had contracted undocumented immigrants for cleaning jobs, and we had cleaned house and fired them all overnight. And for the past 2-3 weeks, we've had nobody to take out the trash. And we started asking, hey, what's going on? Why don't we have anybody to take out the trash? And they responded, we don't have any workers right now. So we started taking out our own trash. What does that say that's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen to the food on the fields? If I work at one of the biggest companies in the world and we can't get our trash taken out because all of our workers were undocumented and we had to fire them all, what's going to happen to the food? What's going to happen to the logistics? What's going to happen to construction? What's going to happen to the road work? What's going to happen to any other number of things? Like I said, the cleaning and housekeeping and stuff, and hospitality industry. We're talking about mass starvation and mass unemployment, the likes of which is hard to imagine. And so I would highly encourage people to be stockpiling at least some food. You gotta have some rice and beans, man. And try not to keep them together, because that might get you in trouble in the future. Having rice and beans together, you might want to separate them so that you're not suspected of being Latino, having rice and beans. But you really should try to stockpile some food, whether it be canned good or dry good. A really smart idea is to have tomato sauce so that you don't have to have water, and you can just cook whatever you have in the tomato sauce rather than just having to use the water. So it's pretty dire. Anytime you're talking about having to stockpile food and water, it's really, really dire. And I haven't even talked about the tariffs yet. He's talking about putting a 25% tariff on everything from Mexico. Allegedly, he's already turned back from that. So, I mean, this goes to show how absolutely crazy it is. That, as soon as he says something, he's walking back from it and flip-flopping nonstop. And apparently people are okay with that. But allegedly, there's going to be 100% tax on all bricks. So that's China. Everything coming from China is 100% tax on it. Just double the cost outright. anything that you think of, which is almost everything, so everything's going to double in price. Almost all of our vegetables come from Mexico. So 25% tariff increase on that would be 25% increase in vegetables. All of our cars come from Mexico, so the price of cars are going to skyrocket. I'm looking at trying to get a car right now before the economy implodes. And to top it all off, I guess we'll go to Elon, in that he's trying to do this federal crypto possibly. And that's really possibly not a great thing for the dollar, because all of these policies I'm talking about, every single one that I've described so far, and basically all of the policies of Trump, if you listen to any economic analyst or whatever from around the world, like every single country and their economists are all telling us, do not do it, step off the edge. But I don't think we're going to. But and maybe it needs to happen so that we can have some sort of fallback to reality. I don't know, but all the economists are saying that the economy is about to crash and the dollar is about to crash. Trump putting out 100% tariff on bricks could potentially push people to bricks inadvertently and backfire. That could easily happen and just destabilize the dollar even more. So all of these things are leading towards a dollar destabilization. However, back to Elon. Elon doing this federal crypto, if the dollar collapsed, that would actually be beneficial for his crypto. So you see where this leads is that, and Elon Musk himself has tweeted out saying the economy will collapse and that he knows it, he's planning for it, and that they're just going to restructure afterwards, and that's what this is all about, is collapsing it for a restructure. And he had to reply back, yeah, we all believe that you can collapse it, but none of us believe that you can restructure it or build it back, which I'm kind of on that boat. I think that they can destroy it, but I don't think he's going to build it back. And if he does this crypto thing, it's more than likely just going to be a scam where they collapse the dollar and then collapse the crypto, and then they're billionaires on their own and they're the richest people on the earth and have no authority or anybody coming after them. They're going to be the top of everything at that point. They're going to be like bigger than the banks at that point, if that plan were to succeed. Not that it would, but... And just to kind of finish off on Elon, because I've talked about him locally here, well, his factory in Austin apparently released way more chemicals into the river and land than we previously knew. We knew that he was mass polluting the environment, but apparently it's with even more, and there was another dump that he did of chemicals into the environment. So he's like poisoning the whole area. But he's also moving to Bastrop. And in Bastrop, there's been videos of Trump busts, like giant statues of him being bussed in on the back of trucks and cyber trucks and like regular trucks and just all sorts of stuff. And, you know, he has like all of these women, like a harem of women that he's convinced to have children with him for the savior of the planet or whatever. And if you have a compound in the middle of the woods in Bastrop, Texas, with statues of yourself and a harem of women and babies, is that not a cult? That's the most cult thing I've ever heard of. And it's going to be like David Koresh, Waco type of thing. That's what I see that compound going down as. Now, maybe now that he's in the feds, maybe the ATF won't raid his place, but maybe they will. I don't know, but who knows? But he's building a cult compound. I'm telling you. So we'll kind of move on from the politics now a little bit. I'm sure everybody's happy about that. I just had to get it out of my system. It's been brewing. And I'll just move on to allegedly super volcano is waking up. I mean, we hear that all the time, right? But I don't know. We'll see. Allegedly, there's one in Italy, one in Yellowstone. So we'll see. I'll provide more information if that continues to change. So Ukraine, not sure if you guys are keeping up with the Ukraine war, but their lines are not doing good. Usually Western media doesn't really report bad things happening with the Ukrainian military, unless it's like really big. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're reporting mass desertion in the Ukrainian army, military, that started as 20 to 30,000, and within a few days they were reporting 100 to 200,000. And these soldiers are basically saying that it's too corrupt, and that it's beyond anything that's reasonable or can sustainable. So the Ukrainian soldiers are filming themselves saying that you can get out of combat by paying for it, and even the president of Ukraine had addressed the people in the military that were doing that were charged with fraud and all these different things, and that's just some of them that were charged, but it's a very extensive issue. So you can pay money to get out of the military or out of the combat. And meanwhile, I have seen videos of literally, and I don't even want to say this, but literally Down syndrome soldiers in the trenches of Ukraine. And I'm sure that you can find the videos yourselves, but we're taught that Ukraine is a bastion of freedom and democracy, or at least that's what they said at the beginning of the war in 2021. And I'm not a Putin fan by any means, but Ukraine is incredibly corrupt, and their soldiers are saying that it's a huge problem in the military. They're saying that almost all the money that we've sent them has been stolen and is not going to the front. It's only a fraction of the money that we're sending is actually going to what it needs to be going. And that's a huge slap in the face to me as a taxpayer. And considering that they've been strong-arming us for so long, saying that this is essential. So the Ukrainian lines are collapsing. They're retreating. There is mass desertion. They had a manufacturing defect on 120,000 to 200,000 mortar shells and artillery shells, causing catastrophic failure of the equipment.